Welcome into another episode of Preacher in the Hat. We are back after a short hiatus for the summer, so it is really good to be back with you guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we are coming back in with a super special episode that was made specially requested by our dad, and we have our sisters, Tonya and Shana in the room.
Y'all make us feel like celebrities. Kind of feel like a celebrity. Stop. Enough.
Good to have y'all with us. As I mentioned before, we kind of jump into some conversation. This was something that Dad, so Steve, for those of you who are of course familiar with the show, asked us to do. Literally reached out to me and Derek and said, "I want you guys to do a podcast episode with your sisters." And he was like, "And I'm not going to be on it." So that was the instruction that he gave, and that's what we're doing. So for those of you, the many of you who watch this only for Steve, don't worry, he will be back. And we miss him in here tonight. We actually went through a few rounds of trying to convince him to be in the room here tonight, but he wouldn't even sit in the room. So we figure that this is, like I said, something that he requested special. So let's we're gonna jump right in. Derek has the incredible privilege of sitting in the quote unquote main chair, and he is
privileged.
He is extremely excited about it.
Looking snazzy.
Yeah, you can't tell, I guess, from our camera angles because Chris sets us up so well. But it sits a little bit lower than all the other chairs, and so they're all kind of like looking down at me.
That's the way we planned it.
But Dad would not sit in anything other than a recliner. Like I think that was just one thing that he really wanted. He liked his recliner, and it was too much of a pain to move it out. So here we are. Here I am. Not here.
And it swivels.
Yeah,
and you can't really lean forward.
No, otherwise I'm gonna. Right up.
He'll choke on the mic.
Yeah. It's all around bad news. But I'm gonna muscle through it.
Okay, so context a little bit for the folks who I guess generally at least know me and Derek is that of course Tonya and Shana are sisters, which I already mentioned. They are older than us, which you may or may not have been able to tell. And they were 7 and 9 years old when we were born. Shana was 9, Tonya was 7. I don't know if you know our ages, so you can try to figure out the math yourself. We're not going to do it for you. So we shared, or we're under the same roof for quite a while, I guess at least 10 years when Derek and I were born. So we've got... spent a lot of time together over the years and stayed close over the years.
Yeah.
So, and so for those of you who are watching on video, just to be clear because we probably won't say each other's names a whole lot more the rest of the way, that is Shana on your left and Tonya on your right. So, I won't make y'all give any kind of like introduction of yourselves. I'm going to start.
Give us a couple points off your resume. Just tell us about yourselves.
Tell us what you've been up to. So I'm actually going to start us off with a question that I didn't tell you guys I was going to ask. And any number of answers is available here. If there was something in our childhood, and it does not have to involve all four of us, but like if there was something in our childhood that could be deemed the incident, like if you've ever heard someone call something the incident, if there was the incident in our childhood, what are some options for what that would be?
Oh my goodness. You going first? You go first. Well, I feel like when you ask that question, it's like one of my answers. Well, my answer is focused on me. You know, like it's
That's
something
fine.
that
Totally fine.
because we're one of the homes that we lived in, and we moved different places
Yeah.
throughout our childhood. But one of the homes that we lived in had these like cliffs, and I wanted to climb to the top. And so the cliff goes like this, and then at the end it goes like this, like, and so
Forget this.
And I'll
So-
say, no, finish up. And then finish up.
Which house was this?
Center point.
Okay.
So I'm this big outdoorsy person. I'm not. And so I start climbing up, and I get stuck on this cliff. And y'all were there. Do y'all remember being there?
We were there. I remember.
And Aunt Janet had to climb up to get me. Which when you say an incident, I guess that details my stupidity. So I don't know what
I
that says
vaguely
about
remember
me.
that.
So I'll
But
say,
see, that doesn't. Y'all don't think? Were you
fine.
there?
Oh.
No, that's a good one.
No.
That's a good one.
I'll say this too. I've been back
Yeah.
to that, and it's not one of those things where you go back to it after your childhood and think like, oh, that's not the hill that I thought it was. That's not the cliff that I thought it was. Like this, it was. It was
It's the cliff that you
I
thought
don't
was
know
it.
how you stood at the bottom of that and thought this is a good idea. Especially you.
My brain
Like,
wasn't fully developed.
How old
can't
were
help
you?
it.
You were in your early teenage?
I would say like 12 or 13,
Okay.
maybe.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds
know,
right. Yeah.
Because I was
And-
probably 5, maybe
Yeah.
5.
I don't know. But yes, I guess that says something about how I look back on my childhood.
Who's got another one?
Oh, I do. But mine also involves me.
Peril.
Yeah,
Definitely
Is
peril.
it life and death, like Tonya?
Yes, and it involves Dad.
Oh.
But it's one of my favorite funny memories, and also like just shows how Dad was with us, like with discipline, like very firm but loving and forgiving at the same time. But I scared him good. We lived in Inslee, and it must have been like a brand new Huffy bike that I got. I love that Huffy bike. It
thought
was
you were
like
something.
aqua green and had pink lettering, pink. And I had a ponytail in my hair apparently, but Dad always describes the moment when he was driving up to an intersection, a 4-way intersection, and here I come down this huge hill on my Huffy bicycle with my ponytail flapping in the wind. Did I stop? I did not stop. I just went right through that intersection, and it scared Dad half to death. So I got in some real trouble. But I just always have this image. I love how he describes
So
it.
we
So
learned,
I have that
we
exact
learned nothing
story.
from your failure because we did that exact.
I
same
have that
thing.
exact story. So there was a blind hill from,
It was a driveway.
it was a driveway coming down, and
On Eastridge.
and it was getting on about nighttime. It was a Sunday night, and we were going, or like, I don't know if we were going home or something like that. But I was like, I'm going to go down it first. So I went down it first, and I could only see there were trees on the left side, and all I could see from coming was I can see some headlights. They're a little bit like far off, but I didn't have like time to stop, and I knew if I stopped, I would be more likely to get hit than if and I was like, I think I got plenty of time, like I'm gonna be okay, and so I just like get it, and the car was dead.
Of
It was dead.
course.
Yeah.
But you were like, it wasn't. It like I know it was really dumb, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
it
it was
wasn't that close.
No,
Right?
no. I wasn't
Yeah.
like about to get hit.
Right.
But I do remember.
It scared
Yeah, it
him.
was like dark enough, and like the car like hits the brakes and turns into a driveway and starts turning around. I didn't realize, because again, it was dark enough at the time. I was like, oh, these people are about to turn around and say something to me, and I was like, oh, it's
Of
dead.
course. Dad. Ouch.
That was stern.
Yeah, I don't ever. Dad
That
never
fucking-
described it as some lovable way of
Yeah.
where you got the ponytail flapping
Yeah.
in the wind thing. No,
No.
I didn't get that.
Probably
I didn't
scared
get
him
that at
so
all.
good.
That was definitely.
Yeah, that was an incident.
Initially, I don't remember getting, it was more like it scared him so good. What could have been.
It sounded like this one was probably a little bit closer call than yours. He
That's
just
true.
Saw
That's
it.
true.
You
Yes,
read.
and it was at night. Mine was during the day. I do remember that. So, but
did you have another one?
I think probably me getting stapled gunned by you.
Oh my word! Wait, what?
At Grandma's.
So our grandmother in Florida, our mom's mom, owned an upholstery shop where she literally she reupholstered furniture. So you wanted a new couch cover. Nowadays, you just got to go buy a whole new couch. Like you can't be able to set stuff up that way. But so she owned that, and Eric and I were messing around there one time. We were probably 4 years old, and when I say you got stapled, I'm not talking about you opened up one of the little things. I'm talking like
pneumatic.
Yeah, pneumatic power, literally powered by the. And Eric went right there.
How did I have access to this? That could have been I could have
been an eye.
Face.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But we were young enough that I don't think Eric got in trouble. He was just as scared as I was. I mean, obviously I was in pain and hurt, but he was horrified and. That was an incident, but that again, we were so young, it wasn't really like we were in trouble.
It was just something. Yeah, it was something we should not have gained access to.
Yeah, right.
For sure.
That's sad because that shop was like a wonderland.
Oh yeah.
There's foam everywhere.
We would play hide and seek
And fabric, you could hide fabric.
Yeah,
she let us make stuff with
yes,
scraps.
I remember that.
Make stuff. I was not real creative. The most creative thing I remember making was grabbing a piece of wood and stapling a long piece of foam to it, and it was making a doorbell.
No, that's pretty
legit.
You tried to make furniture out of
What?
Yeah, you tried to make furniture out of me.
I almost did. Yeah.
I'll still remember. I'll never forget that sound.
It's terrible.
It was bad.
I didn't really have any particular, I didn't really have any with me that came to mind. I don't know, maybe I've blocked out enough of the dumb things that I've done. One, of course, was the... I'm so sorry, Shauna.
I knew this was coming up.
The great teddy bear microwaving.
It must be told. It must be told to the masses.
The best part about this is it was not your teddy bear.
And also, I was a little too old to know better.
So you won't be disclosing your age.
Unfortunately, I was at 4 or 5, y'all were.
The story goes, as far as I know it, Tonya had a stellar... Let's not give... let's make sure we don't give too much credit to Tonya here, because the idea itself, the original idea itself was pretty poor, in that she had the great idea to put her teddy bear in the microwave to make
Wasn't it my idea? It was
I thought it was your idea, and then I thought it was your idea, and then Shauna expanded on it.
Guilty. Yeah, we did it first, and it was just a little bit, and it was warm.
Oh, okay.
I think, or else we had another one in there that was warm.
And so she was like, nuke it!
This was my favorite.
Oh,
okay. Anyway,
I need to clean it.
It was so cute. It was brown and white, and he was good. We would talk our stuffies at night, give him voices and stuff, and he would, my fingers fit just perfectly to make his mouth. And anyway,
so sad.
And so I remember looking through the microwaves weren't up high back then, it was sitting on the countertop, and I remember looking through that little screen, and his head was smoking, and he was charcoaled. He was his eyes and everything.
His eyeballs were melted.
His eyeballs
were
melted. Horrifying.
Now,
Yeah, that's like something out of Saw.
Yeah.
I remember I just kept it. I kept it in the basement with this horrible smell. I couldn't get rid of it.
Well, name?
No.
Do we have a name?
I don't remember his
don't
name.
either.
R.I.P. on
Which
Now-
is
teddy
good.
bears.
That's saving me from more trauma. I'm kidding.
Shauna's desire for all things snuggly. came
And
back.
now there's a massive company called Warmies. Oh,
Yeah, my kids-
Ahead of your
You're
time.
so far ahead of your
where I
time.
could have.
Yeah,
They just
my
figured
kids
out
have
a
some money.
solution for the eyeballs that you.
make them claw.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
There was another one that I remember you guys, there was a big deal because Derek and I's bedrooms were downstairs.
Yeah.
Or our bedroom was downstairs. And y'all came home from school one day and nobody was home. And
Oh, stop it.
y'all kicked in our window.
Do you not
Oh
remember
my
that?
word!
What were we acting like? I mean, were we acting like there were people chasing us and we had to get in?
Were we locked out? Was that? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. I was just hoping we were at least locked out.
It was pre-cell phones.
But why were we panicked?
Yeah, y'all panicked. Y'all panicked.
I remember it was a sunny day. It wasn't like there was bad weather or anybody was chasing
No
us.
doubt it was my idea. I'm sure. Gotta get in the house. Get my snack
Where
after
did we
school
sleep
snack.
that night?
I
Probably
remember.
down there with
Yeah,
the
probably
taped up
yeah.
with cardboard.
Dad probably
Oh, I
put it
remember.
with
I
tar.
remember it being cardboarded. I remember the window being covered with not even like plywood. It was covered with cardboard.
Word.
What can we say? We had to get in.
We're down there.
We
Had
had
to get an after school
I
snack.
bet y'all beat mom home by like 12 minutes.
She came home not that long after that, which is really bad.
Oh my word.
So sorry, didn't mean to put y'all on blast. with
Yeah,
my
anyway.
insults.
Right.
Well, those are the ones
So
that
just
that
sum it
come to
up.
mind.
We were amazing.
Good times.
Next.
Super women kicking in the windows. Jeez.
I'm surprised. No, so we don't have to go unless it triggers something. We don't have to go into that. But I'm surprised. I'm honestly surprised no one had anything from car rides because. So for those of you who don't know, like our dad's parents lived like a 14-hour drive from us. And I
Yes.
think we probably, at least for a while, made that like what every most years, right?
At least to Florida, I feel like.
Well, Florida, yeah.
Yeah.
We did Florida at least every year.
Trying to think how many.
I don't know how often we did Pennsylvania.
So kids today are so spoiled, but when I take my children,
Yeah.
I like, you
Because
know,
Jeremy's parents live in
yeah,
Pennsylvania.
yeah. So my husband's family is in Pennsylvania, and I'll put a toy bag. There's a bag for little DVDs they can watch, you know, and all this stuff. And I remember me and Shauna being in the back, using our socks.
That is disgusting.
I remember.
We
had to.
I
Becoming
think that's.
that it
Creative.
has to, I know what you're gonna say, and you can say it. That has to be it
I'm not a big feet person. Like,
at all.
keep me away from me.
And socks even
Yeah,
more
yeah,
than
get
feet
that.
for me.
I don't.
And
hilarious.
it's the origin. I will
It
hear
must
no
be.
debate.
That's so.
Did you
fun.
know that?
No,
I'll
I
hear
think
that
I've heard that, but I'm.
But I will say this about, I think, because we have young kids now, 4 and 1, and we've not done a 14-hour trip or whatever. Yeah, the kids are spoiled, but I think like about that too, that the parents are a little bit more like it's easier on us than it was as a parent then to travel.
That's
with
You're
true.
right.
kids. So yeah, they're spoiled, but we also like get to take advantage of. They glue themselves to you know something like that for.
Yes.
Particularly if you can make it to where your kids aren't always in front of a screen and all that stuff, so they get that screen time
On the
drive,
trip.
and they'll just lock in, and it's easier. As
Yeah.
a parent.
That's
It's
very
easier.
true.
Way easier.
Thank you.
I know. I remember I was talking with someone, I can't remember who. Isaac had when he was real little, he was like rigid about his nap times. He had to have naps, and every day after church. It was always, if we went out to eat or something like that, or even just going home, it was such a battle to keep him awake, because if he fell asleep, a lot of times it might ruin his nap when we got home. And I remember we were out with some, I think some people from church for lunch, and towards the end of lunch, I pull out my phone and let him watch probably like Mickey Mouse or something like that. and one of the parents was just like, I would have loved to have that as a parent.
Yeah.
To be able, they were like, every week we fought that with my daughter, trying to keep her awake. And so, whereas I'm like, hey, here you go, buddy, you can have this,
Right.
keep you awake. So it's kind of interesting.
It's a nice
Yeah.
option for sure.
So, into matters of like discipline. There's a story, Tanya, that you shared in some of our texting preparations of this week, where you and Shana got in trouble for teaching me and Derek something.
Okay.
And I wonder if we dare disclose it.
I remember where I was. You remember in Inslee?
In Inslee, yes. I
And
remember that.
where the fish tank was. Anyway, so
Yes,
okay,
yes.
so we were so excited. We had taught y'all a song, and we had heard it at school because we weren't allowed to,
We were
to
not
listen to
allowed.
whatever we wanted to. And so it was so cute. Y'all were so cute. You had this little curly hair. and
How
all this-
old were they?
Well,
Little.
so we moved to Center Point when we were 4. So if we were in Inslee, it was
Yeah.
4 or younger for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean
Okay.
they were young, and it was so cute.
Yes.
So I mean, you think about, to me, that's like the 2 to 3 age
Yeah.
where it's like you're teaching them something.
Yeah, how to talk.
The
And
dad comes home, y'all are like, "Whoop, Dad."
all I remember about that is Dad. When I tell this story, Dad was like, in all seriousness, he's like, talking about y'all saying, "Whoop, there it is." Shauna, do you know what that means?
This is a song that's not exactly lacking in innuendo.
Chris, can we get the rights to that? Can you play it over? No,
I think
we
if we
can't.
keep,
He
I think if
says
we keep
no.
it under 15 seconds, we might be okay.
Yeah.
Let's not do that.
My word.
We might have some
Let's just
a
sing it.
copyright strike.
Whoop, there it is.
That's the only. I got to be honest. That's the only words to that song.
That's
that I know.
good.
Probably come back.
we
to
don't
you.
you-
That's probably that's probably the only words to that song that y'all taught us.
It was the only ones we
Those are the only
Hopefully.
ones y'all knew.
Hopefully.
I love it.
Good times.
And then Dad, like all our lives.
By the way, I want to go back to this. I have heard since then. I have heard Dad say, "Whoop, there it is."
Yeah, I was just about to
Oh
say.
my goodness.
That's exactly what I was just about to say.
That is.
I've heard him say it.
I
There's a
love
new version now. Justin
Oh.
informed me of this.
They
He-
remixed it.
Hoop. There it is.
That is so lame.
It's a basketball
Don't-
song. I was like, what are you saying, son? Oh, whew. It's hoop in there. Oh, dear.
But yeah, Dad did that. Like
Yeah,
all our lives.
yeah. He said, "Whoop, there it is," and y'all got
Yeah.
We got a talking
shredded
to.
for it.
We got a talking to. That's
I
about.
don't know about y'all, but I never had a talking to by Dad. So it never happened.
You escaped it, huh?
No. In fact, if we were to, no one would ever know the answer to this, and maybe everyone would vote for themselves. But if we were to play a game to see, kind of like who would have the least amount of talking tos from Dad, I would guess myself to lose that game.
Really?
Tanya was the favorite child.
Now we're getting into it. Here we
Are
go.
you talking
I'm
about?
sorry. Let me rephrase that. Tanya is the favorite child.
No. And here's the thing. I think about this when we were little. Sometimes when Mom and Dad would go away, me and Sean would turn on a soap opera. Why? What? Okay,
Because
so
we couldn't otherwise.
days of our lives. But anyway, and Shauna got a conscience and went and told Dad.
I felt guilty.
Well, she was so sweet because she went and confessed. Dad comes to me and goes, "Tanya, is there something you want to tell me?" I was like, "No," which was even worse. He's like, "Is there anything that you and Shauna have been doing?" I'm like, "Mm." So here's the favorite.
Wow, look at
I
you
just
coming
felt-
clean.
Yeah, I just felt guilty.
Children take notice.
No, seriously, something that I love so much about mom and dad is they never played favorites. Mm-hmm. And even if, like, because I mean, like, okay, let me take this as an example. I am so non-athletic. It's not even, there's no words for how non-athletic I am. But it's not like mom and dad, because y'all are very athletic. And Shauna, camp, softball, or whatever.
In third grade, I'd like to say in third grade, I kicked a home run. Kickball.
Kickball. Whoop.
Yeah.
But, y'all were like the athletes and all that. But it's
Sure.
not like he would walk around talking about, these are my athletes. Like, he didn't label y'all or label us with maybe, like, if we had a strength or something like that. You never were like, oh, you're smart. And
Yeah, I was gonna say
know.
he held. I say he. We talk about. I'll probably say that a lot. I really mean mom and dad. But they held us. I felt like to our own individual standards, which is like, kind of like exactly what you're saying, where, just because someone made a good grade in. It's like just because someone wasn't having trouble in math doesn't mean that like everybody else is. You weren't like he did.
Compared,
Yeah,
maybe,
skills
yeah.
weren't compared or like used again. You never. Which this is like when you have kids, this is like so difficult to do. Like, so I don't know how they did it because I don't ever remember like even when I was like I would be if I was acting up and Derek wasn't or something, there was not like Derek's not acting up. It's like there was like
comparative.
and like you don't understand how hard that is to do like until you like
That's
have
true.
multiple kids and like you want to be like here's the like you want to point like here's the kid that's doing it right. It's like do it like them. It's like and mom and dad like I don't ever remember getting that comparison drawn, or even not just us, like about me to y'all, but like even other kids, who were around or whatever. There was never any like of that kind of comparison stuff, and that's always something that I've tried to be like super cognizant of because mom and dad did such a good job.
Yeah, they did.
with that.
Because I think when that we all have this competitiveness. We want to do better.
Natural.
And as a little kid, it's so natural for the kid to go. If I tell any, when my big ones were little and my ones now, if I say, "You did a good job," someone over here will go, "Am I doing a good job?"
Yes.
It's just this natural thing in a
Right.
kid, and so it's like if I, as a parent, really hype that up, I can make that competitiveness drive the closeness
wedge.
away. I'm not saying there's never a time to be competitive or anything like that, but I mean when you as a parent promote that, it's just
Right.
it's not I feel like it's not healthy, and that's something that mom and dad did a great job with because I saw y'all as my people, not as people that I wanted to beat at things, like I had to win or like I had to do one up you or something like that.
Yeah, that like takes me back to like growing up, and I don't know if it was all something that mom and dad did, but like I was like super competitive, like when it came to like games of any kind or whatever, but I never like I didn't want to compete against Derek. So I remember like we would play like sports video games or whatever, and we would never play against each other. Like we would always play on the same team. And part of that, and I don't know if it was exactly the same for Derek, but like part of that for me was just like I didn't want to play against him because I didn't want to compete and then get frustrated. It's like because I just wanted to play with him. I didn't want to. I didn't feel it wasn't worth beating him, or losing to him. I'd rather just get the same victory or same loss. It was more important to me. Plus, I think we kind of figured out too over time that like if we competed about stuff, with stuff like that one of us would get frustrated and quit.
I was going
And
to say,
so-
Yeah.
to do it for a
Yeah.
lot shorter.
yeah, whatever
Right.
it was. It's like someone was going to storm off because we were
Yeah.
both pretty competitive.
Right.
But yeah, like, and mom and dad could have, I don't know what, but mom and dad could have done some things differently that would have maybe negatively, affected that to where we felt like we needed to compete.
Yeah, that's true.
But they didn't.
No, they were great about that.
Well, they always led by example, which, as you were talking about, when you become a parent, you see how hard that can be. It's like, okay, do this. I'm not going to do that. but
Don't
you do
watch
that,
me, but
it's
do
like-
this.
But I remember that about them, that I didn't feel like there was this double standard, of like, and I think that helped me so much with just in life in general, but also just really appreciating being a pastor's kid. Like it felt good because Dad didn't like require me to be somebody that I wasn't, or to put on a show, or because he didn't put on a show.
Right.
He led by example.
Genuine.
Yeah. So, or like if I was going through something hard, I had seen their whole life, if they were going through something hard, what they would do, And is it okay if I talk about this right now, about an example?
Yeah.
So Mom has shared in her testimony about going through a time of pretty intense spiritual warfare, just a lot of lies that she had believed and things like that. And I remember one night we were in Inslee, the Inslee house, and I don't know how old I was. I want to say like 10 or something, and it was in the evening, and I wanted to go into her room, and Dad kind of stopped me, and he's like, honey, Mama's needs some time tonight. She's going through something really hard, and he explained it to me like in a way that a kid could understand about like spiritual warfare. And it's like I understood that she was struggling, but I also wasn't scared. Like I was like, it was hopeful. Like he was like, Jesus is helping her, and she's gonna, be fine, be okay. And just those things are just ingrained in me. And so like now with my kids, I'll tell them, like, if I'm going somewhere and I'm praying with somebody, and I'll say, I have to go, over here because I need someone to pray for me. Why? What's wrong? And I'm like, sometimes life is hard. Like you need people, people to pray with you.
Support.
And it's like, I want them to see in me what I saw in my parents, where it's okay. Life is hard. We need other people,
And we're in a spiritual battle too.
Right.
Which it's interesting to me, like even with people that, grew up in church and how a lot of them were not taught about fighting an enemy and how we are in a spiritual war as well. And it's just been huge, like you said, for parenting my own boys and my girls, because I am able to help them get freedom that I received, because I know that a lot of what the lies that we have in our head, where they come from, because Dad and Mom taught us so much about that and how to fight. So
And I think you realize, and that I've realized as a parent too, like just how much you learn from your own parents when you realize that your kids are learning from you too.
yeah.
And like I remember one time, I don't know what I did, or Dad was like correcting me on some stuff, whatever, and I guess he had, was kind of unhappy with some of the way that he had reacted, I guess. And he came back later and was like, hey, I don't know. I don't remember the words he said, but basically just saying like, I messed that up. Like I shouldn't have, been doing, I shouldn't have said that or whatever. And I remember the very first time that happened with me, like with Isaac, it went beyond correction, and I was, basically like showing my anger and just beyond that. Hey,
Correction.
yeah, exactly. And going back and being like, I messed up. Like that's, I said stuff that I shouldn't have said to you, and that that were untrue, and and that you didn't need to hear, and I'm sorry about that. But I think it goes beyond just parenting like that. So much of that skill is lost, and not just that one, but it's more than that. And I think if we don't do it for our kids, then not only are we affecting them as when they become parents, but it's really, you need to be able to go to anybody and say, hey, I messed that up. Like, I'm sorry about our interaction. I messed that up. And, and so I think for me, some of the light bulb on just what a big learning experience my childhood was, is passing all that stuff on now to my kids. I'm like, man, I saw that when I was growing up. And so I had a good example of that. And so many people don't.
I don't think I could do that now without like having that example set for me, because I remember the same as you. It's like I remember multiple times. I don't remember scenarios necessarily, but like I remember multiple times, like, being apologized to by my parents. It's like, and that's like
dad and mom.
That's rare, like for kids to experience. And like even now, and it's a lot easier for me now. But I remember like the first couple of times, like knowing that I needed to do something like that, like for my kids, I was like, I don't want to do this. It's like, because like it's a major like humbling admission, to apologize to someone who may not even really understand why, like what you're doing. Yeah. And but like I knew that I needed to, and I felt how important that was. And I think it's because that was done for me.
Yes.
And so like I knew what it was, know what it was like to sit in my kid's situation and then have, dad come to me and say he made a mistake, like how like validating that is. And then also like kind of like you alluded to at the end of what you were saying, but that also saying like, hey, this is like how good this felt, like how, I don't know, how safe it made me feel to be like apologized to is how I need to be treating other people too.
Yeah.
And just,
so
it
true.
was an awesome example. And like I said, I don't think I would do it. Now,
I mean,
if I
so
didn't
much,
have
so
that
much of the
example.
dynamic is like, why would the parent apologize to the child? You're supposed to just do what the parent says. And that would be hard to overcome if you never saw
that model.
If you never saw the model.
You talk about modeled. I tell Dad, sometimes I get a chance to teach a class to prospective adoptive parents, and one of our sections is we talk about being an effective communicator. But I'm just like, I say, Daddy, I talk about you every single class rotation for it to be your own dad. That because the exercise is, think of someone that's a very effective communicator. And I'm trying not to cry, but it's my dad. But
It's okay. Chris is getting warmed up.
One of the
He's desperate for tears.
one of the crucial pieces is to model. In this communication, you communicate with verbally, nonverbal, all that stuff. But it's like to teach a child about, if it's model what you want them to, to do. But it places, when I apologize like that, it places importance on you. And so, with kids, it's always like, oh, we've lived longer, we have more wisdom, we whatever. And it's like to Eric, like you're saying, humble myself and say, I need that too. I need forgiveness too. And
And it's one of the things too where it's like it has coached me to like I don't have to wait for like some massive like wrongdoing that I've done, done to a child. Like we're talking like simple things.
Yes.
Like taking a tone that I shouldn't have taken. Because what do I expect from my kids, right? To not take a tone with me.
Right.
Like, but then I can turn around and do that? No. And so like that's one of the things that I have to be like that I have to do. And I think that like to me, like that's where mom and dad like were so, great. That kind of stuff is because they didn't wait for the giant thing to be like the obvious like I
apology.
Shouldn't have done that. I remember, and this wasn't to one of us. I remember, and still to this day, no idea, no clue. But dad, me and you and mom were in the Homewood house, and we were probably probably preteens or teenagers by that point at least. And the four of us sitting in the living room. Mom got up at some point during our conversation and went to the kitchen. Dad knew something was wrong. He went I heard him go into mom and apologize for something that he said. Now we were just teenagers and not paying attention to stuff, but like I had no idea like what he had done wrong or what he felt he had done wrong. But so what I'm saying is like, to me, it seemed, I was like, whatever that is like extremely minor, and maybe it was a little more nuanced than that. When you're married, you have, you
It
really
could have been
understand
something that was building up.
Right. And so, their communication is a little different, than me sitting there as a teenager. But it was just like one of those things, like to this day, I have no idea, what the thing was the dad was apologizing for, but like he knew he had to do it and he wasn't afraid to do it. And for, like he didn't he didn't wait till me and Derek were gone. He, it's like he didn't wait till they were going to bed to apologize, later that night or whatever. Like he got up and did it right then. And me and Derek were right there in earshot, listening to him talk to mom. And I mean,
that makes a huge impression.
Yeah, it does.
A kid.
Right. And especially like I'm saying, for something that you don't know right off the bat, or where you'd be like, "Oh, Dad, you shouldn't have said that." It wasn't anything like that. But it was like it's important. Like the little things like that matter, and like that's the kind of stuff that I want to take to my kids and to my wife. And,
Yes.
Hey, this has been Preacher in the Hat, The Girls, Part 1. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We invite you back next week for Part 2 of The Girls. This has been The Preacher in the Hat.